Hey there everyone, this is Aaron Spalsbury at 3X Logic. Today we're going to be going over some of the new features of the VIGIL 10, our new software that was just released, some new advancements and some new features that we've added into the software. The first one I wanted to cover, of course, is going to be the heat map functionality. Heat maps are really neat. This gives us the ability of taking any camera that comes into our VIGIL appliance, and we can actually go back and see what our traffic patterns are. And of course, this is wonderful for anything, retail environment. We want to see where people are walking through our store, perhaps even people that are walking down hallways or even in a parking lot. What area are they driving through? All of these neat, fun use cases we can now apply to any camera that is associated to a VIGIL DVR. So first off, let me show you how we implement this guy. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the settings here on the VIGIL server itself. I'm on the software, and I want to turn this one onto my 6 megapixel camera. So notice I'll just click on this guy, and to turn on a heat map, it is super easy. It is just a matter of putting a check in this little box down here. That's all that it takes as far as giving you the ability of being able to generate a heat map. And again, this can be done on either analog or IP camera. They both work the same way. Once you have that box checked, you go ahead and hit OK. Of course, it applies those settings, and now we can start using this feature. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get off of the server here. I'll show you how this works on the VIGIL client, because of course this is the primary interface that the end user uses to go back and see their cameras both live and in playback. But in this case, I want to go back and see my heat maps. I want to see where people are driving through my parking lot. Where is my motion being generated the most? Now granted, I do have some trees here and whatnot, but needless to say, this will be fun to go through. So over here off to the left, under advanced reporting, if you expand that little window out, of course you have exceptions, people counting dwell time, but the one I'm after on this one is going to be the heat maps. I'll go ahead and double click this, and what this does is this allows me to search or generate a heat map on any of the cameras that I have that little function turned on, what we just went through there on the server. Now, if I use the drop down at the top, whichever ones are enabled, they will appear here within this drop down, and in this case I want to use our 6 megapixel looking at our parking lot. You can change the time frame, and this of course is just going to be however far back we want to go and generate this heat map for. For instance, if you want to see, where are people walking through my store over the span of a day, a week, a weekend, some big promotion we may have going, or people walking up to the promotion area. All of these use cases are beneficial, needless to say, not only in retail, but also any type of other environment where we're just looking for traffic patterns. So I can change it from any day that I want, of course the time as well, but the default is always going to be the last hour, just because we had to put something in there, so we just chose the last hour. But from here, all you have to do is just hit display. Now you'll notice I got a couple of different things that are kind of showing up here on the screen. For instance, I have an auto scaling that's taking place all the way from low to high, meaning where is the majority of our motion taking place on the screen. And of course, if I look here, I see that it is our trees that are generating the majority of this motion. Now I can change two different variables in here. I can change the peak percentage as well as the peak samples. Now peak percentage is going to be based off of the motion that we have set up on this particular camera. Now that, of course, if I come in here and crank this guy all the way up, I hit display, and what do we get? Well, now I'm seeing all of the majority of the motion is happening here around this tree. Well, I can change that to sample rate if we want to see maybe just a little bit more granularity. For instance, if I take peak samples and I crank this guy up to, let's say, 407 or so, we hit display, you'll notice that it's now much more accurate in those peak areas, right? And the peak areas, of course, being where it's seeing the majority of that those samples or that motion taking place. Now, we can also change the transparency on it as well. For instance, if I still want to see my background there, maybe I want to add a little bit more transparency. Anytime you make one of these changes, just hit the display button again, and of course it just reallocates all of that information right there on the screen for you. Now, if this is something that you want to save, you can export it too. So I can come in here, I can hit export. Of course, now it just gives me where do I want to put it, typical Windows kind of stuff, but it does save it off as a JPEG. Maybe you want to use this for marketing purposes, find out whether or not your displays are attracting the people through your store, or maybe they're going down a particular hallway or whatever it is that you're looking for. But you can save these off as a JPEG and of course use them for whichever means you see fit. But really, that's all that there is to heat maps. This is a great addition to the VIGIL 10 software. We hope you find it as beneficial as we do. Thank you guys. We do appreciate you. We'll see you on the next video.